budget came more or less in expected line. If you look at in terms of broad numbers, the capital expenditure at 17% and overall amount of 11.1 lakh crore or 11.1 trillion rupees. That's the same thing as was talked about in the interim budget. There has been slight increase in the revenue expenditure. Revenue expenditure will now grow by 6% as opposed to about 4% as was envisaged in the interim budget. At the same time, because the better receipt of the government, the fiscal deficit now will be about 4.9% of GDP that has been estimated by the budget, as opposed to 5.1% which was envisaged in the interim budget. The main differential here, apart from the tax revenue, is actually the better than expected transfer of profit by the Reserve Bank of India, as against 90,000 crore in the previous year. Reserve Bank this year has transferred 2.1 lakh crore or 2.1 trillion rupees. So that has enabled government both to increase revenue expenditure and at the same time maintain a lower fiscal deficit. Our sense is that with these numbers, the government has been pretty conservative in terms of the tax revenue numbers, and the actual outcome we would expect to be better than what has been budgeted. Consequently, if we see for the last financial year, while government talked about a fiscal deficit of 5.9% initially, and in the interim budget they reduced it to 5.6% of GDP, the 5.8%, and ultimately it got reduced to 5.6% as we can see now. We also think for the current year the actual fiscal deficit, rather than being 4.9% of GDP, will perhaps be 4.7% of GDP if the tax collections go in line with what we are expecting. So this is in terms of the broad numbers. If we look at the focus of the budget continued with what you have seen in the last few years. The budget has tried to push infra investment through public capex, also establishing India as a global manufacturing hub. Different incentives there in terms of the PLI scheme, in terms of better credit availability, in terms of improving the conditions of doing business. All those things have continued. And also the third aspect of the budget which you have seen in the last few years is continuation with the welfare schemes, including direct benefit transfer and other measures. All those have continued. Now, what is new in this budget? One of the new things in this budget, number one, the very strong focus on reviving agriculture and allied activities. And that's something now, while the outlays have not been increased very significantly, but the emphasis of the budget is to improve productivity of agriculture and also make India self-sufficient in some of the crops like pulses and oilseeds, where India is import dependent, to make India self-sufficient in terms of those agricultural products. Also, there are announcements to improve the storage and transportation of agricultural products so as to reduce the wastage. So this is something which is new. Also, along with that, improving agricultural productivity by using weather-resistant crop varieties, better R&D. All those things have been talked about. The other major emphasis area has been employment. In terms of employment, government has created an incentive-based scheme whereby both the employer and the employee would get certain benefit from the government in the form of direct benefit transfer, and so that will induce, and also an internship scheme whereby government will be providing certain incentive in the private sector to give internship for a year. So that is another thing which government has done. And as such, if you look at in the employment program, what government is trying to do, recast the education and skill development in line with the industry requirements. So this is another area where there has been a major transformation. The third thing which has been done is that this budget has given the roadmap for the structural reforms, particularly for the next 5 years. Also, in terms of the structural reforms in various areas, which are required to make India a developed country by 2047, during the Amrit Kal, by the 100th year of our independence. So that roadmap has also been provided in this budget. But one thing about the budget which is attracting a lot of attention is how the budget has changed the taxation system for various assets. As you know, the long-term capital gains tax has been increased for listed equities from 10% to 12.5%. In fact, this has been reduced for other asset classes, including real estate. In fact, while for equity, the long-term capital gain could be realized after 1 year, in other sectors it was 3 years. That period has been shortened to 2 years. But at the same time, while the tax rate has come down from 20, the long-term capital gains tax has come down from 20% to 12.5%. The indexation benefit, which was earlier available, has been done away with. So this is something which also impacted the sentiment in the real estate sector negatively. So also there has been increase in the securities transaction tax for the derivative products, both futures and options, more so for options. So these are the kind of things which have negatively impacted the investor sentiments, and thereby the market has corrected today. But if you look at from a medium to longer term perspective, this budget is pretty positive, because through investment, through employment creation, it's trying to, and also giving some support to consumption in terms of personal income tax benefit, particularly at the bottom of the pyramid. It's trying to boost simultaneously investment as well as consumption. So therefore, it's a pro-growth budget. At the same time, this is also trying to manage inflation. For example, the supply-side policies in the agricultural sector should bring down the food inflation, which has been the major constraint for India in controlling inflation. And apart from that, also by maintaining our fiscal prudence, this will support inflation control. So the budget is both pro-growth and anti-inflation, which is macroeconomically very positive. But the budget is also trying to ensure that the benefits of the growth percolates to all sections of the population. So the cut in income tax rates at the lower bracket and increase in capital gains tax, or in that sense, we think should result in more equity. In terms of income distribution should get promoted. So net, what do we think? While there has been some short-term negative impact of the budget, from a longer-term perspective, from a medium-term perspective, this is a very positive budget, and budget which tries to make the growth both high, sustainable, and reach to various sections of the population. So in that sense, it's a pretty balanced budget.